Welcome in to another week of your top 5 fantasy football takeaways. Let's get into takeaway number 1. The Panthers fired head coach Frank Reich. I said that the Panthers were broken and needed to fire Frank Reich over the last couple of weeks, and they finally did. Frank Reich was responsible for bringing in Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan, not doing very well with both of them, not getting the most out of Andrew Luck. I said he was a horrific choice for head coach. And here we are. Now he's fired. 1-10 record in 11 games. What a failure. Total failure, Frank Reich. Chris Tabor, the special teams coach, will be the interim head coach. And there's nowhere to go but up. Bryce Young was awful in this week's game. 194 passing yards on 31 attempts, took 4 sacks, lost a fumble. There's not much going on. I mean, Adam Thielen vanished. 1 catch for 2 yards on 3 targets. Jonathan Mingo had a weird play out of bounds, but at least he had 60 yards. Maybe there's something there. DJ Chark didn't do much. The backfield, Miles Sanders is a disaster. 15 carries for 28 yards. Chuba Hubbard has been fine. Essentially, they need to overhaul the whole offense. They're scoring 15.2 points per game. Miserable. It's disgraceful. But they're allowing 26.5 points per game. So the defense isn't good either. For the year, they're averaging 5.5 yards per attempt passing. That is embarrassing. I mean, that is a joke. And 3.8 yards per carry running. So they've done nothing. Frank Reich has accomplished nothing. I'm glad that he's gone. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, it's brutal. Bryce Young has been awful. I mean, everything has been awful. They need real weapons, a real running back, a real wide receiver, someone at tight end. They've got nothing out of the tight end position. The team just sucks. And whoever they hire as the new head coach has a lot of work to do because it is a mess here. Let's get to something more positive. Kyren Williams came back from his injury and immediately returned to a lead back role. 16 carries for 143 yards, 6 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a 61% snap share. Royce Freeman did have 13 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown on 34% of snaps. Zach Evans was still relevant. But Williams looked good. No health concerns. I almost think he'll be even more involved next week. If you see that snap rate 70, 75% next week, I wouldn't be surprised. However, this might be an opportunity to sell Kyren Williams in Dynasty. I like him. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I like him. I think he'll even be their starter to open next year. But there is no way that the Rams go forward with Freeman and Zach Evans, Darrell Henderson, Ronnie Rivers as their backups. They will add somebody significant. And even though I like Kyren Williams, is the best thing for the offense to play Kyren Williams in 80% clip? Probably not. He's probably someone who should be in a committee type role. So if you can get a first round pick for Kyren Williams, I would take it in Dynasty. But for the rest of this year, he's an RB1 and there's no way around it. Now, more coaching, but this one is also exciting. The Steelers offense looked far, far better without Matt Canada. It was their first 400-yard game in the Canada era. 0 under Matt Canada. 1 game without him. Boom, 400 yards. Kenny Pickett was fine. He was 24 of 33 for 278, no touchdowns. The thing is, they're 7-4. Pickett was better in this game. We can dislike it, but Kenny Pickett is going to be their 2024 starter. It's not maybe, it's not possibly. It's year 3 of a first-round pick. They're 7-4. He's going to be their starter next year. We have to accept that. The question is, can he go from being one of the worst fantasy quarterbacks for us to okay? He's never going to be great. But can he do enough to support his receiving weapons? That's the question for next year. The running backs. Interestingly, Jaylen Warren was kind of similar to before. 13 for 49 and 3 for 13, lost a fumble. It's actually Najee Harris who was unlocked by the change. He suddenly looked great. 15 for 99 and a touchdown. Very effective on the ground. I think there was a personal problem between Najee Harris and Matt Canada. You can kind of see in his interviews, Najee Harris was not happy. That might be part of the problem. So it's a committee. Warren's PPR work makes him the better weekly play, but it's a committee. There's no top 20 weekly play here. We have Warren as a low-end RB2, Najee as a mid RB3. That's what we have moving forward. But the receiving core is where I'm excited, especially for Pat Freiermuth. 11 targets, 9 for 120, but only played 59% of snaps in his first game, kind of under this new offense. That's gonna change. That's gonna rise. It's gonna move up as he gets fully healthy, recovering from his injury. He's gonna get worked more and more into the offense. He was an 80% of snaps player before. I think we're gonna get right back there. He's a tight end 1 rest of the way because this kind of volume, many tight ends haven't had this kind of game all year. So he should be a tight end 1 moving forward. Diontae Johnson was good-ish. 4 for 50 on 8 targets. But the effort on the fumble, I can tell you, I think there's the problems with Diontae Johnson go beyond Matt Canada. There was a fight, multiple fights. I think he is another Antonio Brown, and he needs to leave. He needs to leave this mess because he just isn't getting along with people there. So I'm a little concerned about Diontae Johnson. George Pickens, 3 for 58 on 5 targets. The bigger role did not materialize. The one thing that's good for the Steelers is that they focused on their main weapons, the 2 running backs, Freiermuth, Johnson, and Pickens, and ignored everyone else. So that's good for fantasy, especially when you have someone like Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Next, Keaton Mitchell was the best running back on the field, and I'm including Austin Eckler in that, who Austin Eckler is washed. He's done. He finished. He might get a new contract next year. Might be okay for fantasy, but we're way gone from Austin Eckler being elite. But that's a separate story. Keaton Mitchell, 9 for 64 on the ground, 2 for 25 through the air, 46% of snaps. Edwards only had 27% of snaps. Hill, 28. Edwards had 8 carries and a reception. Hill, 5 carries. Mitchell had the most routes, the most carries, the most snaps. The usage is there. He will be my highest ranked Baltimore running back next week. But this is still a committee. Mitchell's probably a low-end RB2, maybe somewhere in the RB3 range. Edwards is now outside the top 30, and Hill is not rankable. But I do think that Mitchell is someone who's going to have staying power. Is he going to be their starter next year? I'm not saying that. I think he's going to have this role, though. I don't think he's going to go away. I think he's going to be someone in 2024. He has a role on the team, and possibly they have another guy to kind of take it. They improve on the Edwards role, someone better than Edwards to play Edwards' spot. But Keaton Mitchell's not going away. He's a dynasty asset. And then lastly, I want to talk about Bijan Robinson. Give him props. He had 16 for 91 and 1 on the ground and 3 for 32 and 1 in the air, including a really nice touchdown on that catch. 63% of snaps. And it's interesting to note, Algier had 29% of snaps, Cordell Patterson 26. That means that more than 100% of snaps went to running backs, which means the Falcons ran 21 personnel, with 2 halfbacks, which we never see. But they did it. And it's their best option because the only receiver that they trust is Drake London. He was 5 for 91 on 7 targets. He had a good game. Other than the running backs in London, no one else had more than 2 targets. So Bijan Robinson is becoming their second weapon in the receiving game. So yeah, Drake London and Bijan Robinson are startable moving forward. Robinson is an RB1 after this performance. And London you can still trust. But it's nice to see the receiving work going to Robinson because that's what we need for him to be in the RB1 range. But he had an excellent game, and we got to give him props for that. If you like the video so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And then additionally, we have Patreon questions. If you want to ask these questions, you can sign up at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. The link's in the top right corner. And you can ask these advanced questions for the YouTube videos. Let's jump into question number 1. Is Jaylen Warren the Steelers starter in 2024? I would lean that the Steelers bring back the exact same backfield in 2024 and have the exact same roles. So starter, technically, maybe no. More valuable running back, probably. But I think we're going to run it back in their running back room in 2024. Is Christian Watson a buy low in hopes that the Packers realize they need a new quarterback next year? Okay. For the Packers wide receivers, the way I see it is that I don't want to say the problem, but the one to be replaced is Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs is the one they're not scripting plays for. He's just there. He's there. He plays. He's there. They scripted the first play of the game for Christian Watson, that deep threat. They have these designed runs, all these things for Jaden Reed. They like him. Romeo Doubs is there. If they could replace Romeo Doubs with a normal wide receiver that's better, they would. So the problem is if they replace Romeo Doubs with someone better, is that going to be better than Christian Watson? Probably, because Christian Watson is kind of a limited player. He has a specific role. What is low? Are we talking a second? Then I would do it. If that's low. If it's more than that, probably not. You always say draft for value, trade for need, but we still execute a trade like Bijan for Kyler straight up in Superflex if you're trading for value more than for the need. I will say that's a Dynasty Outhouse phrase. And while I think it's a very cute phrase, it's very accurate to how, as someone who's in a league with him and knows him well, it's accurate to how he plays Dynasty. It's not actually really accurate for how I play Dynasty, now that I think about it. How I play Dynasty is draft for value, trade for value. So, to answer this question, I would prefer to have Kyler. I think Kyler is worth more in Superflex. Bijan has not, while he's been good, has not shown that he's league winning on his own. So if he's not going to be league winning on his own, I would rather have the quarterback who runs with a long-term contract than Kyler. What's your MVP, most overrated and most underrated of Thanksgiving dishes? You'd probably be surprised, but turkey's one of my favorite foods. So it's probably a controversial take, but that's the one I like the most. In terms of overrated, I think most of it's overrated. Turkey is the only thing I really like. I don't eat a lot of dessert, so I would say that. I like to try to stay in good shape for you guys so I can have energy and not feel sluggish. Although it didn't work this week. And then most underrated, I don't know. I really like a lot of vegetable stuff. My family always makes these Brussels sprouts. I always like those. All right. Has JSN shown enough that Seattle will move on from Lockett before next season? I don't really understand all the cap issues, so I'm hoping you can illuminate and prognosticate. So they're not going to be cutting Tyler Lockett. His contract's underwater. And same with DK Metcalf. So the only way that one of DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett is leaving is via a trade. Now, could that happen? Yes. Am I going to predict a trade? No. So what needs to happen is that JSN needs to pass them. Now, I do think this last week, the Seahawks have to see that JSN is probably their best wide receiver right now. So maybe it happens that he progresses up the depth chart, but I'm not projecting Metcalf or Lockett to leave. Their contracts are not cuttable, so it would have to be a trade. What do you do with T. Higgins in Dynasty? Would you sell now if you get a reasonable return or hold for him to have the offseason uncertainty cleared and sell for a higher price, or just continue to hold? The answer is continue to hold. There's no what return are you going to get for T. Higgins? What are you going to accomplish by selling T. Higgins? A rebuilder probably doesn't want him because he's not the new shiny toy. A contender doesn't want him because he's not doing anything. What is your market to sell T. Higgins? The answer is that it doesn't exist. So you just have to keep T. Higgins and hope for the best. We talked about this earlier. What's the fallout and analysis of Frank Reich being fired in Carolina? Biggest winners and losers, if any? There's really no winners or losers, but it's the right decision. What's going to matter is not that they fired Frank Reich. That was a given to me at this point. I don't care if they fired him now or 4 weeks later, so whatever. The thing is, who are they going to hire next? That's what I care about, not Frank Reich being fired. He was never going to last more than this year as of about 5 weeks ago. So once again, I appreciate everyone for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. Check out the Patreon. And until next time, I will see you all later. Peace out.